May 1945. The air in a small Bavarian town hangs heavy with the scent of damp earth and lingering smoke from distant artillery. Late afternoon sunlight filters through shuttered windows of a requisitioned schoolhouse, now serving as a temporary processing center for surrendered German personnel. A column of young women in gray uniforms, mud-spattered skirts and weary faces, steps cautiously through the open doorway. An American lieutenant, helmet tucked under his arm, pauses and holds the heavy wooden door wide, motioning them inside with a quiet nod. In the final weeks of the European War, as the Third Reich crumbled under the weight of unrelenting Allied advances, hundreds of thousands of German women who had served as auxiliaries in the army found themselves face to face with victory's victors. These were the Wehrmachtshelferinnen, the female helpers, secretaries, telephonists, clerks, and signals operators, who by 1945 numbered nearly 500,000. Recruited initially as volunteers from the League of German Girls, many later drafted into obligatory service, they had filled essential roles behind the lines, freeing men for combat. Uniformed, yet not officially soldiers, they operated switchboards in occupied France, typed orders in Norway, manned anti-aircraft spotting equipment on the home front. Nazi ideology had long resisted arming women or placing them in direct danger, preserving the notion that German womanhood belonged to hearth and kinder, yet total war demanded their mobilization. This moment in May mattered profoundly, for it marked not merely the surrender of armies, but the collision of two worlds shaped by opposing visions of society. In the rigid hierarchy of the National Socialist state, women in uniform existed within a framework of strict subordination and ideological conformity. Officers commanded with absolute authority, deference was enforced, equality dismissed as decadent liberalism. Personal courtesies between ranks, especially across gender, were rare. Practicality and discipline overshadowed individual gallantry. Propaganda exalted the Aryan woman as bearer of the race, yet in daily military life she was often reduced to function, her presence tolerated only as necessity. What these young Helferinnen anticipated in captivity drew from the torrent of Goebbels' final broadcasts, tales of Bolshevik barbarism, warnings that Western plutocrats and their Jewish allies would strip Germany bare. Many feared the worst: vengeful retribution, degradation, the loss of all dignity. Rumors swirled of mass violence in the East, where the Red Army advances had unleashed horrors upon civilian and auxiliary alike. Surrender to Americans offered uncertain relief, yet expectation leaned toward harshness, perhaps imprisonment without mercy. What they encountered instead defied every prophecy of the regime. American officers and enlisted men, products of a democracy that prized individual worth, extended small but profound gestures of respect. Doors held open, seats offered in crowded rooms, cigarettes shared without demand. Rations distributed evenly, sometimes with extras slipped quietly to the women. In processing lines in temporary holding areas across Bavaria and the Rhineland, U.S. personnel treated these former auxiliaries not as despised enemies, but as human beings deserving basic civility. Historical records from U.S. Army reports note the orderly handling of female captives, with separate quarters provided where possible and medical care extended promptly. By mid-1945, most Wehrmachtshelferinnen were released swiftly after screening, returned to civilian life far sooner than their male counterparts. Eyewitness accounts preserved in post-war memoirs and interviews revealed the depth of this contrast. One former signals auxiliary recalled stepping into an American-held building, expecting brusque orders, only to find a young officer rising to hold the door, his gesture accompanied by a polite, "After you, ma'am." Her cheeks flushed, not from fear alone, but from the unfamiliar warmth of being seen as a lady rather than a cog in the machine. Another described a captain removing his cap indoors in her presence, a courtesy seen in years of service under Wehrmacht officers. These acts, repeated across countless encounters, carried weight beyond the moment. In a society where women had been drilled to submit without question, such chivalry struck like a revelation. The recurring sound of that door, creaking open, held steady, and closing gently behind, became a quiet emblem of American abundance in spirit. Not material excess alone, though chocolate bars and nylon stockings would soon follow, but an abundance of decency rooted in democratic ideals. Where Nazi order demanded obedience through fear, American conduct offered respect through choice. This simple politeness symbolized a nation that, even in victory, upheld the dignity of the individual, enemy or not. For many of these women, the experience wrought quiet transformation. Indoctrinated to view democracy as weak and decadent, they witnessed its strength in restraint. Some later reflected that those held doors opened wider vistas, questioning the regime's lies, pondering freedoms long denied. Post-war testimonies speak of shifted perceptions, the blush of surprise giving way to thoughtful reevaluation of authority, gender, and human worth. In the epilogue of war's long shadow, these fleeting courtesies endure as threads in a larger tapestry. They whisper a timeless truth that freedom's deepest abundance lies not in conquest or plenty, but in the quiet choice to honor another's humanity. In holding a door for a former foe, America revealed the ideology that prevailed, a belief that dignity shared strengthens all, while dignity denied diminishes the giver most of all. Thus, in the spring of 1945, amid ruins and surrender, small acts of chivalry illuminated the path from tyranny's night toward a dawn where individual respect might yet rebuild a shattered world.